Have you ever felt like you're trying to drink from a fire hose? Every day, another expert, another study, another miracle food, another warning, another supplement that you supposedly can't live without, another social media post telling you everything you've been doing is wrong. At some point, you don't get healthier, you just get soaked. If that's how you've been feeling, then this episode is for you. Welcome back to Over 40 and Done with Diets. I'm Coach Neil, founder of PhDsynergy.com. Last week, I told you something I hope you won't forget. You're not broken. Today, I want to tell you something that explains why you've probably felt broken. You've been trying to build your health while standing underneath a fire hose of conflicting advice. And here's the thing. Nobody can drink from a fire hose. The harder you try, the more overwhelmed you become. Today, I want to help you turn down the pressure, not by giving you more information, but by helping you filter that information that's already coming at you. Because I believe something with all my heart. You don't need more noise. You need clarity. Can I tell you a story? I remember exactly what it felt like when I finally got serious about changing my own health. Like many of you, I started reading everything I could get my hands on. Books, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, getting research articles. I wanted to learn. I wanted to understand, and I wanted to finally figure this thing out. And honestly, those first few weeks were incredible. The information I was finding was high quality, it was consistent, it made sense. More importantly, I wasn't just learning, I was applying what I was learning. And I was seeing results. I was losing weight, I felt better, I had more energy, and I started thinking, why didn't anyone teach me this years ago? Then, about 3 or so weeks later, the algorithm had other plans. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Since you watched this, you might like this. At first, I thought, great, more good information. But it wasn't long before I realized something had changed. These new voices sounded convincing. They had credentials. They spoke with confidence. And here's what made that even more dangerous. They had just enough truth to make me question what I had already learned. I'd heard something and would think, wait a minute, maybe I've been doing this wrong. Maybe I've missed something. Maybe I need to do a little more research before I keep going. So that's exactly what I did. I watched more videos, I read more articles, listened to more experts, compared more opinions, studied this, studied that. Another study said the opposite thing. One doctor recommends one approach, and another doctor completely disagreed. Then I'd hear someone say, well, they've been debunked now. So I'd research that. Then I'd research the research. Then I'd research more people, researching the research. And then one day it hit me. I wasn't improving my health anymore. I'd stopped. I was becoming a professional researcher. And that's funny until you realize how many people are living out there like that. Maybe that's you. Maybe you've spent hours trying to figure out the perfect diet, the perfect supplements, the perfect workout, the perfect fasting schedule, the perfect expert. All the while your health is sitting there waiting. Then I realized something that changed everything. Two very dangerous things had quietly slipped into my thinking: doubt and confusion. Once those two unpack their bags, progress usually packs its own. Because let me ask you something. What do confused people do? Nothing. They don't start. They don't stay consistent. They don't commit. Not because they're lazy, not because they don't care, not because they're broken. They don't move because they're confused. And confusion creates hesitation. Hesitation creates inaction. Can I ask you another question? Have you ever noticed how researching feels productive? Watching another podcast feels productive. Reading another article feels productive. Listening to another expert feels productive. But let me ask you something. Are you busy or are you being productive? Are you spinning your wheels or are you actually making progress? Don't confuse motion with momentum. Researching another YouTube video is motion. Reading another article is motion. Comparing 20 experts is motion. None of those things by themselves change your life. Eventually, I had to make a decision. I was going to stop trying to hear from everybody, and I was going to limit my sources. Not forever, just long enough to find out whether the people who had already helped me make progress could continue helping me reach my goals. And something amazing happened. My mind became quieter, my confidence grew, and I stopped second-guessing every decision. I stopped chasing every headline, and I started building momentum again. That experience taught me something I'll never forget. The problem wasn't that I needed more information. The problem was I needed fewer voices. Maybe that's where you are today. Maybe you're genuinely trying. Maybe you care deeply about your health. Maybe you've bought the books, listened to the podcast, watched the videos, read the articles, and somehow you feel more confused today than you did 6 months ago. And if that's you, I want you to hear this loud and clear. You're not failing because you don't care. You're struggling because you've been trying to drink from a fire hose. A fire hose doesn't quench your thirst. It knocks you on your feet. Think about it this way. Imagine I handed you 5 different maps, and every one of them claimed to lead to the same destination. One says go north, another says go south. One says go east, the other says go west. And the 5th says, actually, none of these people know what they're talking about. So what do? Most people wouldn't choose a direction. They just stand there holding 5 maps, wondering which one was right. That's exactly what information overload does. It doesn't just clutter your mind, it paralyzes your feet. And that's why clarity is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. Not certainty, clarity. Because clarity leads to action. Action builds confidence. Confidence builds consistency. And consistency creates momentum. That's why I teach something that I call the reductionist principle. Whenever life gets complicated, reduce. Whenever nutrition gets confusing, reduce. Whenever the experts start shouting over one another, reduce. Think about putting together a 1,000-piece puzzle. You don't start in the middle. You find the corners, then the edges, and then everything else starts to make sense. Health works the same way. Before you optimize, build your foundation. Move your body. Eat real food. Prioritize protein. Build muscle. Sleep well. Manage stress. Drink water. Repeat. Those things aren't flashy, but they work. And after coaching people, I've noticed something. The moment someone stops chasing every new trend and commits to one sound plan, their shoulders relax, their confidence grows, not because they know everything, but because they finally are doing something again. So here's your challenge this week. I don't want you to find another expert. I don't want you to buy another book. I don't even want you to listen to another health podcast until you've applied something you already know. Let me say that again. Information by itself doesn't change your life. Applied information does. Knowledge isn't the finish line. It's the starting line. So don't ask yourself, what else do I need to learn? Ask yourself this. What do I already know that I can apply today? Maybe it's eating a little more protein. Maybe it's taking that 10-minute walk after dinner. Maybe it's going to bed 30 minutes early. Maybe it's finally starting that strength training routine you've been putting off. You probably already know what your next step is, so just take it. Because momentum begins the moment information becomes action. One decision, one healthy meal, one walk, one workout, one good night's sleep. Then tomorrow, do it again. As we wrap up today, I want you to remember 2 things. First, you're not broken. And second, you don't need more information, you need less noise. Stop trying to drink from a fire hose. Turn down the pressure. Limit the voices and trust the process. Then give that process enough time to work. Because health isn't built in one dramatic moment. It's built through ordinary decisions on ordinary Tuesdays, repeated consistently over time. That's exactly how metabolic momentum is built. If this episode helped you, I'd love for you to share it with someone who feels overwhelmed by all the conflicting advice. Because chances are they don't need another expert. They just need a little hope. Next time, we're going to tackle one of the biggest mindset traps that keeps people stuck for years. The all or nothing mindset. Because one unhealthy meal doesn't ruin your progress. Believing it does just might. Until then, take care of yourself, keep moving forward, and remember, small steps taken consistently change lives. I'll see you next time.